Bobby Juliana, what's going on, man?
Matt Spurrier, my friend, doing great on this fine Sunday. How are you?
Doing great. If the Sixers weren't letting me down so much the
Yeah, I mean,
past
if you
couple of
listen to
days.
the last podcast, we had some predictions that came very wrong.
Yeah,
Very
maybe,
wrong.
hopefully not indicative of other predictions we make on this show.
Sure.
My basketball IQ is not as high as my... Well, never mind. Maybe we shouldn't talk about that. So anyway, welcome to the OR podcast. This is number 13. My name is Matthew Spurrier. Joined with me is my co-host, as always, Bobby Juliana.
Yes, indeed.
We gather around, we talk about news, we talk about politics, we talk about culture, ranging from anything. Last podcast, we had a big, heavy culture episode, and unfortunately for you politic junkies, we're going to have another culture-heavy one today as well. Before we start, I think actually, let's just jump right into it. I think we should just jump right into one of the bigger culture stories of the week.
Right.
Which unfortunately had to do with prom.
Prom season, baby.
Prom season. How fun it was, high school, going to prom. Remember? Me and Bobby, we went to prom, had a great time. We went to the Poconos after for a weekend with all of our friends. Prom was a great time to have some fun, celebrate graduating high school. But unfortunately for one girl, she was put in timeout. And she had to be banished to the pits of hell because she's 18 years old and decided to cultural appropriate, which is a cardinal sin under the religion that is progressivism.
Uh-huh.
So
Well said.
why don't you take us through the story, Bob? What happened?
So, it's amazing how viral this went.
Which is why we want
girl-
to talk about it at the beginning of the show, because it
Right.
went crazy viral. This was all over the place.
it was the New York Times, the Washington Post wrote a story about it. So this regular girl, not famous in any way whatsoever, and she puts 4 pictures up with the caption "prom" on her Twitter. And the 4 pictures, is like her and her date, her and the group of people she was with, and then 2 pictures of just herself. And
very normal for an 18-year-old girl going to prom.
totally normal. So, I looked at the picture, saw nothing wrong with it, and then I see someone, commented on the tweet and said, quote, "My culture is not your goddamn prom dress." And the person who said that, his name was Jeremy Lamb. I'm assuming is type an Asian if you look at his picture in the on his Twitter profile. And this is in reference to the dress that the girl was wearing. The dress
Asian. He's American Asian, by the way.
Sure.
Sorry.
The dress was like it's called a kiapo or chipao. I don't know how you're supposed to pronounce it.
I think it's called a kipao.
Kipao. Okay, there you go. It's just if you think of Mulan, it's like that. It looks like that silk satin robe almost.
It's a pretty Oriental style dress that most people would see and be like, oh, that's like Chinese culture. That I've seen that before. I thought I saw a couple places it's used for like Chinese New Year and like formal events. And so this tweet, "My culture is not your goddamn prom dress," received 41,000 retweets, 180,000 likes, and over 20,000 comments.
Yeah.
And what I wanted to say when I saw this was how fucking stupid this was. Here we have some...
Go ahead, lay it on.
Some random guy, right, finds a picture of a girl in a prom dress that, listen, she's not burning the prom dress, like stomping on this cultural garb of like historic Chinese significance. She's wearing a pretty dress that she likes.
Even if she was,
even if she was, I don't give a fuck.
You don't own that. So everyone got outraged basically saying that this white girl is culturally appropriating this Chinese culture and the Chinese heritage by wearing the dress. And then she got her own Twitter and kind of defended herself. She tweeted to somebody. She was like, "It's a fucking dress. Like, I thought it was cute, so I wore it."
Exactly.
I don't know why everyone's getting mad. And it got so viral online, and not just the one person who had that original tweet, but then, like Salon and Vox write articles and with headlines like, "Some girl wore a Chinese dress to prom, and here's why that's offensive." And it's like, no, it's not actually offensive. We don't have to take offense in everything. And this isn't cultural appropriation. Cultural appropriation is bullshit and it's made up. I don't believe in it.
Exactly.
If you
That's
believe
me
in
too.
cultural appropriation, you're an over-offended person, and they talk about the privileged people of the world. If you're fighting the war of cultural appropriation, hawking some girl that you don't know online about her prom dress, then you have problems, so little problems that you're making them up, basically.
Yeah, you really. Is this the struggle? This is the new struggle, the post-capitalism struggle. A couple things. One, it really was so nasty, and another example of how the tolerant side, right? The tolerant side came out, right? Salon, all these articles are bullying
Right.
this 18-year-old girl who, not in malice, went out and tried to denigrate someone's culture. Right? She just put a picture up on Twitter, and next thing you know, she's calling this storm. She's caught in these articles being called all these nasty things for what? Going to prom and wearing a fucking dress?
Right.
Give me a break. And I also love how Jeremy Lamb, notice you say, my culture is not your prom dress. It's Jeremy Lamb's culture. You see, it's not, it's no one else's culture. Jeremy Lamb is the
Sole owner.
the
Right.
sole owner of all Chinese culture, even though if you look at his profile, the dude's never been to fucking China. He's American.
Not even that. I mean, he's wearing,
no,
like,
sorry.
Adidas in his picture. And like,
Well, that's another side. I'm saying you're American Chinese, and sure, you have culture, your parents, but they went over to China because the story gained so much like attention, and people in China, like actual Chinese people, was thinking, "Oh wow, how cool that like some Western girl wants to wear our cool traditional like stuff, our like garb. Like how
I saw that. Like,
amazing
the
is
response
that?
in China was like overwhelmingly positive and favorable.
Yeah.
Meanwhile, in America, we're so angry for no reason over nothing, and we're just wrecking this nice little girl about the dress that she wore to prom.
Jeremy Lamb doesn't get to decide for all of China what is and what is not offensive.
And then you know what I think's really funny is, of course, you're gonna have people that then dig into whoever Jeremy Lamb is, and they pulled up tweets of him from like 2013 talking about like, I'm eating something with I'm eating food with chopsticks, like American culture's the bomb or something like that. Like he had some weird tweet about chopsticks.
No,
in America.
they found him saying the N-word. One of
that
my
too.
favorite Twitter accounts is Neon Taster. He's just a great account. You should follow
He's
him.
great.
And he did like a search tweets for this Jeremy Lamb kid, and turns out that this Asian kid who is so deeply involved in the Chinese culture was using the N-word. And now, correct me if I'm wrong, I don't think Chinese people are allowed to use the N-word. Is that
I'm not
true?
sure how that works.
I'm not sure how it works. I know I can't. I don't. I stay away. I'll definitely get in trouble. But I didn't know. But again, do I care that Jeremy Lamb did this? No. I mean, he's just kind of being a beacon for being like an idiot and bringing this up. But it just goes to show, really, dude, if you want to do this game, let's pull up what you've said before and let's get angry at you. And
that's also the point. You don't. The outrage is getting so ridiculous over like every day, every podcast we have now. There's literally just a new thing that went viral and got everyone outraged for really no reason. Like there was no reason to spend 3 days of news cycle talking about this girl's prom dress. And oh shit, what was I gonna say? I had a point. It's just we spend our time outraged.
The Korean War ended.
Yeah.
Come on.
There's like long, big, important things going on and actual news, but again, we're just bogged down in this really nasty and really angry, constant two sides yelling and bickering about things that are very trivial. And oh, here's my point. And when he points out this prom dress, and says my culture's not your goddamn prom dress, and creates all this outrage, then what you have is that response where you then search his tweets and call up on his past aggressions, as opposed to just, two sides being friendly and talking about actual things that matter. We're just arguing over nonsense.
No, the culture right now is people feeding each other to the sharks and trying to find that piece of meat they can throw you overboard to, right? Or whatever that crappy analogy I just tried to use was. They're trying to find out what they can get to you for. No one is on your side, right? Because that's what it comes down to is you play that game. And Jamie Kilstein played that game for a while. Remember the comedian? And he's gone on Joe Rogan's podcast. Yeah. he was a progressive, and he talks pretty openly now about when he was involved in this game. It was a game. The entire game was to have the spiciest, meanest tweet to try and call and check people on their privilege and get the most retweets, and you're constantly checking your phone. Who's approving my stuff? Did the blue check mark this one retweet it? Did that blue check mark favorite?
Yeah.
And that's what they're doing. They're not a cohesive side. They're trying to they're eventually trying to stab each other in the back.
It's ridiculous actually watching the members of the left just eat themselves over minor offenses. You know what I mean? Like tiny little things that actually shouldn't matter, like can get the whole apparatus that was once supporting you turned on you.
Yeah, and it happens on a dime. And I think that, I mean, sorry, I just lost my train of thought, man. What the hell? This second podcast, we're losing our train of thought.
It's the day after Cinco de Mayo, you know. It's a rough Sunday. Got the Sunday scaries, just trying to shake it off.
Speaking of cultural appropriation and Cinco de Mayo.
Yes, exactly. Here we go.
I was waiting for this, right? I was like, on Cinco de Mayo, I was thinking, okay, like, when's this going to happen? I didn't say anything. It was relatively quiet. And then today I get on the internet, as I'm one to do, and the Southern Poverty Law Center had one of the best takes of the day. This is their tweet, quote, "Most of the festivities surrounding hashtag Cinco de Mayo in the U.S. are textbook examples of cultural appropriation, relegating the history and culture of Mexico people to novelty items. Mexican culture cannot be reduced to tacos, oversized sombreros, and piñatas." No one did, Southern Poverty Law Center. Have you seen how Americans celebrate 4th of July and Memorial Day weekend? Drinking and food seems to just be the way people celebrate, right? Those are two of the things that, you know, I always love. I always think it's funny. If you ever go on Snapchat stories, right, and you ever, like, go around, one of the more interesting things if you, like, watch stories from around the world is it's basically a bunch of 20-year-olds getting drunk and having fun at a party. And you realize, drinking tequila, and what you realize is that although we have things that separate us and our culture is different, essentially we're the same. People are the same across the world. We all like the same things.
Everyone likes to eat, drink, and have a good time. And who doesn't like a nice taco and a nice big strong shot of tequila, you know?
And a margarita on a beach? You're not allowed to have a margarita on a beach anymore?
And like just thinking about this tweet and like thinking about the message that is behind the tweet and like the thinking behind it, like, okay, like on the flip side of that, how about do St. Patty's Day? Like, what do you think about pretty much everyone just getting sloppy drunk, you know, and drinking beer? Like,
Irish culture is way more. You can't just relegate the Irish culture.
You can't relegate Irish culture to
Irish potatoes and beer. Yeah, exactly. It's like no one is. It's like we're celebrating because those are the party aspects, I guess, of the culture. I don't know.
It's like going back to the prom dress. Like the girl wore it because she thought it was nice. Like people on Cinco de Mayo, you know, dabble in Mexican food, you know, music, drinks, the Mexican culture, the aspects that they can indulge in, you know, without going to Mexico. And that's not a problem. I don't know why that is an issue. What are you supposed to do? And I saw somebody like some crazy liberal put out there like, she doesn't have a blue check mark, but this has got a couple thousand retweets. It was like rules for the day. Like if you believe in a border wall, you can't have tacos. Like if you believe in, like she put like 5 or 6 rules, and it was all like if you believe basically like immigration policy or in a border wall or like against amnesty, then you can't have any type of interaction with any type of Mexican related culture.
Has anyone told her that there are Mexicans that live in the United States? Has anyone told her there are illegal Mexicans all over the place?
Businesses by doing this.
Yeah, what are you talking about? Go to Texas, go to California. There are legal American people of Mexican origin, the same that there are Irish people and Italians and all that. That's silly. And that just goes to show how shallow they think about this type of thing. She wasn't thinking. She was just trying to win brownie points and get 1,000 retweets. That's the whole goal, is the social currency aspect of it.
But I'm conflicted as to whether I think that these people deeply believe this or if they've gotten caught up in this game of outrage.
I think they deeply believe it. I just don't think they've thoroughly thought it
about
through.
it.
Like I I'm sure that like they're like, no, well that's their culture. Like you can't do that. Like I'm sure that they believe that. I just don't think they've like logically thought through. Okay, so what are we supposed to do? Oh, okay, so we're supposed to all just live in our own bubbles or something?
I mean, of course they haven't thought it through, because the same people that say that's a cultural appropriation if I have a taco on Cinco de Mayo are the same people that, are screaming about how diversity is our strength and we need, a culture full of all different people. We have to keep the border wall down because we need Mexicans here because diversity is our strength. But I'm not allowed to have anything of the Mexican culture. So which one is it?
Right, no, they're supposed to come in here and then all stay separate. And we're not supposed to interact or something? See, I don't understand. I'm just confused. I don't understand.
Well, I know they don't believe in assimilation. They certainly don't believe in assimilation.
They don't believe in assimilation, which is one of the scarier aspects of their, I guess, policy on immigration, right?
I would say so. I mean, that's my whole problem with it.
Right. That's exactly. Maybe we can just go off on tangent there. Right? I think the conservative position, right, is supposed to be, as long as there is no welfare system, open immigration, but you have to assimilate, right?
Sure. I would not mind any quota on immigration if there was no welfare for the incoming people and there was assimilation, as in they come here and they want to be part of our culture, not live in our country with their own existing culture and customs from where they came from.
Right. Like you left that behind you. Yeah.
Exactly. That's the reason why you're coming here.
Which is funny because most of them do. Like I meet immigrants all the time.
Do. I would argue
It's the people here that don't want that.
Right.
Almost. Like the immigrants I've spoken to, and of course it's like anecdotal, right?
Right.
But the immigrants I've spoken to immigrants from like Ghana, from Somalia, I've spoken to immigrants from Central America. They're the ones who are reading books on Henry Kissinger.
Yeah.
Like I told you that one time. I think I had a discussion with an immigrant from Chile about Henry Kissinger. Me and him were just talking for like a half hour, and it's like, no, yeah, sometimes it's my own bias, I guess, because I just think that whatever these people are saying is what these immigrants believe. They're almost like their little lapdogs that they're like, no, come on, you want to believe in this, you have to vote for the Democrats.
Mm-hmm.
And then you realize that the immigrants are their own people. Right, again.
The soft bigotry of low expectations.
Exactly, that's exactly what it is. And they don't think that these people can think for themselves when, in my experience, it's always, no, I came here to work. I came here because America was way better than living in Jordan.
Right,
Guy I
so
spoke
I want
to
to be
2 days
American
ago.
now.
So I want to be American. And, and they bring their culture, and they're fine. They love it. The immigrants are awesome. It's the leftist policy that is so damaging and so dangerous. Because you don't want that, the idea of just come here and don't even try to change. Don't even try to speak the language. Don't even try to mingle with other people. Like they have to respect you. You don't have to respect them.
Right.
Almost in a way. That's what I don't like. I don't like that.
I don't think that's ever going to change. I mean, Trump's whole thing was build the wall, and we are not one step closer. Immigration policy is largely the same. For all of the things he has accomplished, that certainly is one of his bigger promises that he has not delivered on.
Yeah, I don't
know how that's going to affect him in 2018. I mean, he's certainly going to run on it. He's going to gin that up. He's going to say, "I'll build the wall if you give me more Republicans," or of course he's going to play to that, because that still has a lot of pull. I mean, people obviously still care about that issue. But
I think the wall is so stupid. I just want to get out there and say I think it's such a stupid symbol. It's so I don't know.
Well,
it represents something that I don't want America to be, I guess.
We can't have a serious, rational, intellectual conversation about any topic really anymore. We're having 3-day-long fights about prom dresses. Do you really think we're going to have a serious discussion about immigration policy and the ramifications and the plus minuses and the benefits? So it basically just gets distilled down to build a wall or don't build a wall, and build a wall stands for
fix immigration.
It's just an easier way to clarify what side of the tribal fence you're on.
What side? Right, that's a good way to put it. And to clarify,
because we've lost all nuance. There's no more nuance. We can't have. within the build the wall camp, there are 50 different factions ranging from like, bring in 0 immigrants, build a wall, deport all 11 million people, and, more border security, maybe change quota numbers, like there's a wide range of issues, but it just gets distilled down to build the wall, don't build the wall, bigot, not bigot. You know what I mean?
Yeah, maybe that's a drawback of our sort of political
Discourse.
system. Yeah, political system in our discourse where everything has to go down to these slogans. Doesn't help anybody.
Bumper stickers.
And, even though I don't want the wall, I am in some way sympathetic to, immigration has been a hot button issue for, 20 years? Right? Like,
I mean, longer than that. This was
longer
an
than
issue
that.
during Reagan's presidency.
And sort of those people around Arizona, Texas, like down southern states, they sort of have been ignored in a way, if you want to call it that.
100%.
In that they've been saying, can someone do something about this? And just nothing gets done. And so
Right.
eventually they voted for the bull in the china shop when it probably would have been better to have a panther. Right, to be a little more delicate, knock over a few little plates, but instead you got the bull, which knocks over every plate.
Mm-hmm.
And probably not good for the overall system, but it's what they thought was going to get them, an answer to their cries for help.
So now you say you're against a border wall.
Yeah.
I mean, I guess I just elaborate on that a little bit more. I am in favor of a physical, structural barrier in the areas where it's deemed that it would be necessary. I mean, just having a wall from end to end, like from the Gulf of Mexico to the Pacific Ocean, one, isn't practical, and two, it isn't fully necessary. But having a wall in certain areas certainly is.
Well, I guess I'm not opposed to increasing border security. I think we should have control over who comes in and who doesn't. My main contention with the wall is that I think it's a waste of money in terms of just building this wall because it's a symbol of what you want it to do, right? Because just because you build the wall,
well, I mean, I'm against it too if it's like you said, a symbol.
That's because that's all I think it is. Okay, so
that they need it. You know what I mean?
Okay, if it's determined that you need it and it's like, hey, the wall is the best solution, sure, I guess. I don't know that, because you are putting some nuance to it. That's not what you want. Isn't what they're saying on TV, right? Like what they want on TV is
like
creating
Ann Coulter's
these
definition of build the wall in mind.
Like that's what the voters said they wanted, right? It's not that they just want some increased border security and checks on immigration. They surely do want that,
right?
But their position surely is distilled down to build an actual physical wall.
Right.
Let's test out the prototypes in fucking Arizona to see if we can get around them. So I just disagree on that part. In terms of like monitoring immigration, I think every country, every state has a right to know who is coming in and who is coming out, and has the right to decide whether or not someone can come in has the right to decide whether someone can come in. Should always be allowed to leave.
Who can come in?
I'm always okay.
Yeah, I'm still waiting on Whoopi and Mark Wahlberg. Who was the other one? Whoopi, Raven Simone, the girls from The View,
Joy Behar,
Matt Damon. I'm still waiting on all them to leave. You know, Trump's been in office for 2 years now. You're free to go at any time. But
right, we live under a fascist dictator. We live under a fascist dictator that somehow, for some reason, doesn't crack down on The View.
Yeah, right.
And their resistance speech.
No, but the nuance in terms of that debate is very important. Like, I think, as opposed to just a physical barrier, like, there's a lot of more constructive things that could be done, like E-Verify, just changing policy and laws regarding, like, how people are treated when they come to the border. Like, because that caravan, right, that was on its way up, semi got broken up. A large portion of them still continued to the border. And what people don't realize is if you just come to the like, there are big border crossings. Like, the people go back and forth between Mexico and the United States every day for a variety of reasons, travel, work, like a lot of people.
Mm-hmm.
And if you, like these people that came up through Mexico from South America, they go to the crossing and they just get funneled into a line. They get fielded by the agents. They get processed, and then we can't get rid of them, particularly if they're seeking asylum or if they're claiming refuge or there's a host of reasons that they come in. Okay, then we get their name, we schedule them a court date to decide what to do with them here, and then we release them and we let them stay here until that court date. And then some skip out, some don't, but that whole process, I think, could be reformed because you can literally just walk up and say, like, I want to be here now, and like there's nothing we can really do about it based on existing law, which I don't think is correct.
Yeah, that's sort of and it's a tough problem to address, because what ends up happening is, those caravans just say, well, we're going to America. Are you going to get in? Oh, they'll let us in. Oh, we'll get in.
Yeah. Yeah. Like they know. They already know.
And I am sympathetic. Listen, again, you make fun of me for having my, stupid heart on my sleeve sometimes, but I do feel for poor people that want a better life. Like I really do. Like I wish we could help everyone, but it isn't a smart policy to just have open border immigration. It isn't, unfortunately. Maybe I think the best way to address these problems is, continuing, and maybe we can lead this into our next topic, actually, and try to spread what makes America so great to other countries. Because there's nothing inherently special about America that I believe. Like, there's nothing that says, this is America and this is the only place where freedom must thrive. These are all ideas based on the culture, based from the Enlightenment, right? Individualism, peace, free markets, right?
Right.
Tolerance, acceptance. These are ideas that can be spread and have been spread. They've been spread to Japan. They've been spread to South Korea. They've been spread to Germany.
Of America comes from the principles and the founding of this country.
Exactly.
And those principles can be put elsewhere.
So, for example, there is no reason that Cameroon can't be a hustling, bustling, capitalist, free market, thriving society someday. There are things that are holding it back, and part of it is the culture and these ideas and war and poverty and corruption. But it's possible. And so we have to try to spread these ideas to other places instead of just saying, hey, everyone, come on in, free gates.
Yeah, because as much as you want to help,
that's not sustainable. It's not sustainable.
Right, exactly.
Ideas are sustainable.
As much as you want to be compassionate and helpful for those refugees coming up from South America, like at a certain point you have to draw a line, because if, you let those 10 in, then how about the 100 behind them? And then, why don't we just bring the entire country up if it's much better here, and that would be more beneficial for them. But at a certain point, obviously there's an opportunity cost to that. And I love how we frame this argument constantly about those that are arriving as opposed to those that are already here. You know what I mean? Like, the people that immigration is affecting are largely the poor people already in America.
Right,
the working man in America.
Minorities in America.
Especially minorities in America. I don't think anyone has been more damaged than from illegal immigration and that low-skilled work labor coming here than probably the African-American community.
Yeah, African-American community and the poor white communities in Appalachia and the Rust Belt, right, down south, right, they're getting her from illegal immigration as well. And so it sucks when we have to measure who's got it worse, the poor person in Baltimore or the poor person from, Venezuela. It's like, come on, we want to help both, but let's try and help these people that are already here.
Right.
Right?
Help me help you.
I don't know. And ideas are powerful, and we maybe have talked about this before, but is there any doubt, like it is all ideas, and culture matters so much, and I've been awoken,
I think.
To how important, how culture is everything. Culture is essentially the only thing that fucking matters.
Politics is downstream of culture. Andrew Breitbart.
As Andrew Breitbart would say, and maybe people have thinks that's been overused recently, but it's so true. But think about this thought experiment for a second, right? If you take all the people from Somalia, and you take all the people from Florida, and you switch them, and you just switch them, is Florida still Florida? Is Somalia still Somalia? No, right there. You just took these people. Like, it sounds really it's like an awkward thought experiment.
Dave Smith had a similar. Have you heard him?
No, I don't know if I've heard that one. But essentially,
Dave Smith basically. Go ahead.
Sorry, yeah. But essentially, it's the ideas that matter. Like, you can take a baby from anywhere. Is there any doubt you can take a baby from anywhere in the world and put them in, a rich family in America and send them to the best schools and they would thrive? Sure. Right? Is there any doubt? And, I've actually been going on a bent. I'm reading Sam Harris's The Moral Landscape right now. Again, just to refresh myself, because it's a book that just eviscerates moral relativism. And moral relativism sort of comes into contact here, but, he gives an experiment where some of the people on the left, they say culture doesn't matter, right? That's their thing. Culture doesn't matter, all cultures are equal.
It totally matters.
We're all the same. And Sam Harris makes a thought experiment. All cultures matter, okay. So are you telling me that you would take your child and the Taliban's child, someone from the Taliban, and you switch them? You're saying it doesn't matter? You're saying you're not forfeiting your child an opportunity? It doesn't matter that, girls don't get educated in Afghanistan. Doesn't matter that, they can just be beaten by their husbands and that the Taliban has harsh rules, right? All culture's the same. It doesn't matter. Who are you to judge? Well, we can judge. We can say what is objectively better and what is objectively worse. And it's an easy, contrast when you're talking about the Taliban and someone who lives in the Upper West Side. But that has gradations. And that goes all the way down to, how you raise people, how people raise their children, how people conduct themselves in their relationships and their friendships. I mean, it permeates everything. So, sorry, I mean, that was sort of a long tangent on why moral relativism.
No, that was good.
And we need to spread ideas, and culture does matter. So yeah, culture matters. And let's go right in there, unless you have something else you want to say on the culture part, to the New York Times when they put an op-ed or an article. I guess this was for May Day, right?
Yeah.
The made-up stupid holiday for Karl Marx. And so I've been talking for the past 3 minutes. Why don't you tell us a little bit about Karl Marx?
I wasn't even surprised. There are a lot of parody Twitter accounts, and sometimes you have to double check to make sure that's an actual thing. And I came across this, and I was like, that's not real. And then I checked it, and it was blue check Twitter, the actual New York Times tweeting out an article. Happy birthday, Karl Marx. You were right. That was the title of the article.
Ballsy.
I mean, ballsy, very ballsy, from the New York Times, as Andrew Klavan would say, a former newspaper. They've just become such a parody of themselves. The article was basically just about how, it went through Karl Marx's history with Hegel and the philosophers of his time, and sort of how he used his ideas, and how now with technology and everything that's happening, we're starting to see a shift from the brutal capitalism that we have. It's so brutal, to
and
Michael Moore put something out that he's like, we're underneath brutal capitalism, and we need to get
millionaire
back to
Michael Moore.
Yeah, millionaire Michael Moore, brutal capitalism. And I just thought, brutal capitalism, people are eating dogs in Venezuela. There's not a single ounce of food on the shelves in the grocery stores. What's brutal about capitalism with all this plenty that we see around ourselves?
Most prosperous, richest nation to ever exist.
It's just, I don't know, man. Everything's upside down. Everything's upside down.
It's very depressing that people still look to Marxism because, especially the younger generations, no one's really lived through communism or socialism, right?
It's almost like a punchline at this point. You're like a communist. But they don't realize that ideology, that way of thinking that spawns from Karl Marx is responsible for over 100 million deaths in the last century. You know what I mean?
It really is. It really is. They
there's no more ideology in the history of mankind that is as deadly and as violent and as detrimental than communism. Flat out.
Yeah. Soviet Union, China, Cuba.
Well, Marxism in general, but communism obviously is one of the worst derivatives. But
yeah, because if you look at the reality of capitalism, the facts, as we like to call them in the real world, capitalism since 1980 has brought millions of people out of grinding poverty. all communism has done is put bodies in the ground. That's all it's done.
Pretty
Where
much.
are the places of plenty that communism has been tried? Every single time communism gets tried, it's all violent revolutions that end up with more people dead and just another dictator on top, and they end up starving.
Right. I mean, communism, socialism, any type of Marxism, basically. And it's so funny. The Socialist Party on Twitter is like
the biggest joke on Twitter. I know.
It's unbelievable. But they basically just search Twitter all day to find anyone. They probably just search the words capitalism, socialism, and then they just hound people's tweets. So Dennis Miller tweeted out, I don't want to culturally appropriate Venezuela and end up with their socialism. And the Socialist Party then commented on that and was like, Venezuela is not socialism. Socialism has no ruling class. The ruling class in Venezuela, there's a few elites and a handful of rich that are overpowering the rest of the people, and they own the means of production. And it's just like
socialism.
Yeah, so socialism, so just because, and I love the argument that socialism has never been tried. Just because what you write down as the definition of socialism doesn't occur when you try it out does not mean it hasn't been tried.
Right. Just because you're like, hey, I did A and B, how come we're not getting C? As if C is communism, right? It's like, no. You tried A and B, and instead of getting the utopia, you got people in mass graves and starvation.
Right. That is the result.
That is the end of the equation.
That is socialism, communism, Marxism. Right. It's so naive to think that you try and put the definition, a classless society of equals sharing the means of production. Put that into place, and what you get is a few people that get to the top and ruthlessly oppress the rest.
Yeah.
Every time.
And they use the state for it, right?
Right.
They use the state. The state is a religion, and the state becomes the mechanism to take everyone's money, redistribute it to your friends, and crush dissidents. And it's so funny how they still happily use the words like communism on the internet and stuff like that. Like people happily wear Che Guevara t-shirts who massacred the LGBT community all across South America, right?
Right.
But forget that. No. That was, I guess that was necessary to achieve I don't know, their stupid ideology.
You can't follow the logic, dude. There's no logic behind it.
There is no logic. And, the only places that are openly communist are North Korea, Cuba, and then close in socialism is Venezuela. The three shittiest places to live in the world.
Right.
Two of them are essentially slave states.
Yeah.
I mean, no, I wouldn't say Cuba's a slave state, even though you're not allowed to leave, right? I mean, so in a way, that is. It's starting to. It's a prison state. I mean, North Korea is openly communist. They got their communism from the big guy upstairs, Stalin. And they're just gulags.
No, you said this before the show started. If you ask anyone coming from a socialist or a communist country, what'd you think of it?
The
reviews are not pretty good.
No.
You got
0% on Rotten Tomatoes.
Right. Yeah. You got people I don't remember the guy's name, but the man who left North Korea and was at the State of the Union address that Trump honored. You know what I mean? Yep. He had the crutches and he left. And I mean, there's countless stories of people who go to amazing lengths to get out from underneath communism and socialism.
You can even go. Sorry, you can even go to Garry Kasparov from Russia.
Right.
And that's Soviet Union. But continue.
And yet the people in the West, the people that were writing this op-ed in the New York Times, Karl Marx, happy birthday, communism, yeah, rah rah, communism's great, are largely NYU people.
They're New York City liberals.
People from the most, they talk about privilege, from the richest, most privileged cities. Their dad's a fucking lawyer and their mom's a doctor, and they go to school for poetry, and they're just arguing against the 1% and the rich and the bourgeoisie.
They live in a loft in the village, and that's it. And it's all taken care of, and they got to fight. They got to fight, and they got to march, and they don't have a job. They they study the humanities. They got to go to a march on a Tuesday at noon, while the rest of us got responsibilities and bills to pay.
Right.
And maybe that's a funny caricature, but it's strangely
it's not true.
It's not true. Exactly. You definitely can't prove that I'm lying when I say that these are most of these people. So yeah, And Garry Kasparov, for example, from Russia, he's the world chess champion. He speaks out against Putin and all that. You know, no one from these communist countries is like, unless they work for the government and they're in the party of the communist party of that country, they're the only ones advocating for it. And so at what point do you look at, because you shouldn't judge a country based on the richest people, right? I think I've said this before, but right, you go to any country, the rich people live awesome lives, right? Saudi Arabia, they live in a strict Islamic society. The kings drink liquor and have prostitutes and have parties.
True.
Right. The rich people in North Korea are essentially fine. Syria, they're hanging out in Damascus. Russia, they're oligarchs. You don't judge a place by the rich. You judge a place by the poor. Okay? And in the West, poor people have refrigerators, they have TVs, they have internet access,
Cell phones.
clean water, cell phones. And it's not perfect. It's not perfect.
Right.
It's not. We can do a lot better. I agree. We can try to make free markets and capitalism help these people and continue to bring these people out of poverty. But when you go to communist states, you're not finding the poor people have refrigerators. You're not finding the poor people watching TV and going on the internet and using social media.
No, they're shooting zoo animals in Venezuela for a meal.
They're eating dog in Venezuela, right? Like off the streets, stray dogs. So I think people need to keep that in mind, that when you look at these communist states, it's look at the people who are eating grass in North Korea, right? That's communism. Okay, it's not the military uniforms and speaking out against imperialist America.
And
Even
yet we're
if I
so
agree sometimes.
ignorant in all of the benefits that we have reaped from living in a capitalist, free market, open, free society. We overlook and we flirt with, 74-year-old Bernie Sanders, a washed-up socialist who honeymooned in Russia, honeymooned in the Soviet Union. He's a democratic socialist. There's nothing democratic about socialism whatsoever. It's a misnomer.
Other people vote to take your money.
Yeah.
That's the Democrat part. Instead of it just being one guy, it's person A and B decide to take C's money, which isn't fair. That's aggressing against someone else. That's theft. Yeah.
But that's only going to grow in prominence. You watch.
Yeah, and we're the classic trust fund babies on a macroeconomic scale. Yeah. We've been pampered. Our generation has surely been pampered, and we don't know. I'm not gonna lie. What do I know about real struggle? Come on, I'm not gonna say no one's life is easy. Everyone has their problems and their issues, but our generation, we've had it pretty good, and so it's pretty easy to lose sight of how bad things can get. I was actually. Did you listen to the?
We've had it so good that we fight about prom dresses, Matt.
Exactly. Did you see the Jordan Peterson?
We don't really have issues.
Did you see the Jordan Peterson Ben Shapiro interview today?
No, I bookmarked it. I was about 5 minutes into it, and then I had things to do.
You should, but he talks for a second.
I'll get around to it for sure.
He talks for a second on how they consider themselves Enlightenment thinkers, focusing on individualism and like the scientific method and facts and stuff like this. Mm-hmm. And I think it was Ben brought up this point where he was saying how we live in a society of Enlightenment values, but we forget how quickly it can devolve into tribalist nonsense, and how when you go back to the ancient collectivist thinking of this is my tribe, everyone that looks like me, this is my tribe, everyone that thinks like me, and it's us against the world, how dangerous and how easily it is to break a society apart like that. I
mean, and that's what we're facing right now, extremely tribal.
Yeah.
Put X issue out there. Which side of the fence are you on? Dig in and don't give up an inch.
Put the jersey on.
Yeah.
Put the jersey on and get in there. Next man up. Yeah, so maybe something will change. I really think maybe I'm optimistic, but... Yeah,
you're more of an optimist than I am.
But I really do see an emergence with Shapiro, Harris, Jordan Peterson. Mm-hmm. Those
the
three
Weinstein
names.
Brothers.
The Weinstein. The intellectual dark web. As nerdy as that sounds, there is something to be said about more and more people who appear to be kind of like me, around the center, who are just interested in ideas, and left or right, I don't know, let's hear it out. Let's have the conversation.
Right.
Let's not be rude about it.
Well, a a debate based in actual fact where your opinion is subject to change based on the presentation of fact is one of the rarest things that we have. You know what I mean? Like, just think about our current, like, the way we discourse. Like, okay, we have cable news. You get on there, split the screen, left person, right person, 2 minutes each, make a convincing soundbite, try and sway people on the divide of the country.
Go.
Or divide of an issue. Go. When in actuality, like, the best solution to whatever problem it is probably a mixture of both with a little bit of nuance and, you know, an idea from a third person. We can't have that discussion. And like you said, the discussion that's going on online, you know, while not talked about and not well known about, is growing exponentially by the day.
The mainstream media is losing their grip.
Yes, 100%.
They're losing 100%. Their grip on information.
I mean, just podcasts, the outlet of podcasts.
And you're starting to see them try and grab the last vestiges of them with the government. Did you see, we didn't have this written down, but the meeting with Zuckerberg, and so basically it came out, Facebook decided that they're going to start ranking and, you know, rating news outlets on Facebook based on trustworthiness.
Whoa.
And in the meeting, if you look at the guest list, Huffington Post, BuzzFeed, New York Times, CNN, Wall
was invited
Street
to the meeting with
Journal.
Facebook.
Okay, these are the people that are in charge of judging whether or not news is trustworthy. BuzzFeed isn't trustworthy. I don't trust BuzzFeed with anything. Can they get some things right? Will they write some facts? Sure. But since when has BuzzFeed been the arbiter of fucking truth? Give me a break.
No,
you know,
I agree.
And I'm not saying that they have to get on there and invite Alex Jones. I think Alex Jones is a conspiracy idiot who peddles supplements to to the mentally insane. But come on, they're gonna say Daily Wire is not as trusted. They're gonna say that right-wing websites, the Daily Caller, and on all these
Blaze,
places,
Town
the Blaze,
Hall.
they're gonna say that these places are not trustworthy and that they're fake news. And we're just going to have to believe and take HuffPo's word for it.
Right.
And I don't believe that. I think what I would much rather have is maybe if users did it, at least then it'd be like open and fair, you know? But I don't trust Facebook to be the arbiter of what's right and what's not. I don't.
I mean, the breakdown in the media, I think, is one of the most under-discussed things in terms of why we are so polarized and so heated. Because I feel like for so long you had ABC, NBC, CBS. You had 3 news stations, and you got your news from that nightly news anchor who the nation trusted so much. You know, he'd come on your TV, tell you what you needed. Exactly, America's newsman, right? Mm-hmm. And then you know, you get CNN, you start to get a couple more, and then Fox News comes along and presents an entirely different narrative.
Yeah, that's you know, not only a different narrative, but it's like this like entertaining, you know, opinionated thing, right?
No,
it's not just reading. It's not. That's what I'm saying. I'm saying it's not just reading from a prompt that there was a flood at Katrina today. It's having a fiery interview or something, and it's sort of like smashed all those barriers. Correct?
Well, not even the way in which they presented the news. I'm just saying the news that they presented, like it broke from the monolithic. Like Rush Limbaugh and Fox News came along in relatively the same amount of time, and all of a sudden it was like, whoa, there's a whole nother voice out there. There's a whole nother side as opposed to what I'm getting everywhere else. And it broke that stranglehold on the complete control and presentation of information, so that now people are like, oh, okay, if I disagree with ABC, then I must agree with Fox. So now I'm on that team, and then of course, and then you add the internet in, and you start to get HuffPost, Vox, you know, Salon, leftist, and then you get Daily Wire, The Blaze, townhall.com, more conservative publications, Breitbart, right? So I mean, in a way, like this breakdown of a media has allowed so many ideas to come to prominence and people to really wake up in a lot of ways, but it has also caused people to just retreat into their own bubbles, deep into their own bubbles. Like, okay, if you're only reading, you know, Salon, BuzzFeed, Vox, and, you know, following certain, you know, liberal people on the internet,
right?
It's like, dude, you ever put on CNN at like 4 o'clock, the top of the hour, and Fox, and just go back and forth? It's
Two
like
different
two
worlds.
different universes. They don't cover the same story. They stories that they both do cover. You could get totally different pictures of any topic. Like you
Mm-hmm.
could have your whole different set of facts and understanding on an issue when there's an actual concrete reality to what's occurring, and we're painting our own pictures and then choosing what we like. And I don't know, as much as it is it is freeing, it is also prisoning, putting people in these kind of prisons.
Right. Like I'm always interested by like I don't read Breitbart. I think after once Breitbart became Bannon's mouthpiece for Trump, really, and that after Ben Shapiro left is really when it started to heat up. It's interesting how following like so what you were just saying, like there are these people who follow Salon, BuzzFeed, and they follow their people, right? There's
Right.
Sophie Hagen on Twitter as their whatever is their person, and then there's also the other side where there are these people on Breitbart, and to them it's almost like they find their audience and their niche and their content pillar of like what they want to focus on. So Breitbart, you see a lot of Breitbart in the comment section talking about Islam, for example, and you don't see it anywhere else really in that same way. Like, don't get me wrong, I super interested in terrorism and connections between faith and belief and stuff like that, but it's a bubble, and then it becomes these people are fighting what they think is the like did you go on there? They think they are fighting for civilization.
Yeah.
Breitbart. Like they think this is like the civilizational war of this era. And I just don't see it anywhere else. The war is just not happening on Daily Wire. Just not happening on The Blaze or BuzzFeed. And so it just goes to your point that we get into our own bubbles.
Islam?
Yeah, sorry. I'm just saying like what Breitbart is concerned about and their viewers is not what the Wall Street Journal is concerned about. Like they're concerned about the economy, for example. And so people are just getting into these insular bubbles where their entire worldview isn't consistent with what other people around them are thinking at all. It's just what these people on the internet are thinking with them.
Right.
And it becomes dangerous because then, you start, seeing the world, for example, in the Breitbart case, you start seeing the world through the lens of we're in a civilizational battle against Islam right now, and that's it. When that's not true. That's not. I mean, maybe there's a little truth in that.
I mean, you could argue continental Europe is.
Yeah, that's where mostly it comes.
Right.
And they're fighting again. Culture does matter.
Right.
Right. But I think. Yeah, I mean, I don't want to get bogged down on the Islam thing. I think the Islam thing is important. I'm just using it as an example.
No, I see what you're saying.
Of what you care about. I mean, we could do the same thing with Salon or BuzzFeed. They're concerned about identity politics, and so identity
CNN
politics
seems to be only
is
concerned
their
about
thing.
Stormy Daniels.
Or CNN is concerned about this Stormy Daniels. Can I just say about the Stormy Daniels thing, and I didn't have anything written down for this either, how hilarious it is that, when Trump was elected, and I was sort of a part of this, because Trump does have shady business connections. That's been known his entire life, right?
Sure.
It was, this guy is a Russian agent. This guy, hangs out and talks with Putin. They're best. They still believe this. They're best friends, essentially. And if they were allowed to hang out every day, and if Trump was allowed to be the dictator like Putin, he would.
Mm-hmm.
And we went from that to, well, maybe let's see if we can get him on an FEC violation.
Pretty much.
Right. Louise Mensch was tweeting about treason. Was tweeting about, this is a hanging capital offense that someone is, using the Russians to like subvert American democracy. That's all faded away. Right. There's no evidence of any of that. Right. It's basically become a nothing burger, to use that term. And now we're back to, well, maybe he paid a porn star and we can get him on an FEC violation. It's just, it cracks me up how the people on the left don't see. It's like they lied to you the whole time, guys. They're just trying to get you angry against the other side.
Exactly. No, the facade is totally off. If you don't see it by now, you're either too polarized or you're not paying attention. To think that this investigation in particular that started with this completely undefined charge of collusion. No one really has even told me still what that means. Okay, so it starts with it's a charge of collusion, and I mean even Comey, right, in that interview with Brett Baer, he said if you don't know or have some significant leads by 10 months in an investigation, you're either incompetent or there's nothing there. That's like not an exact quote, but that's what he said. Okay, we're 15, 16 months into the Mueller investigation here on collusion charges. And what are we actually now investigating? He's deep into the payments that Trump had to a porn star. So, okay, I don't see how that is any longer. There's no parameters on this investigation. It's just I mean, the more time goes on, it's hard to not agree that it is a witch hunt. This is Hillary Clinton supporters and people that are unelected within the government basically trying to justify her losing and investigating Trump as a way to take away his legitimacy.
They're trying to do that. Sure. But
they're trying to run him out of office.
Right. I was
going
to say.
That he beat Hillary Clinton.
I think that it's not so much they're trying to excuse why she lost. I think they know why she lost. I think they're more just bitter about it. And they're bitter that this guy, this white, sexually, harassing, narcissist buffoon, he's the fucking president. And we don't like it. And
no, he's not one of them, dude. If Mitt Romney beat Hillary Clinton, there wouldn't be an investigation into Russian collusion.
Right.
Okay, there wouldn't be an investigation that is now stretching into business dealings, personal life, just to try and find something so that if they flip the House in 2018, they can offer impeachment charges.
And I don't
this
really
is all
understand.
this is.
Yeah, and I don't understand, Giuliani really set the, liberal media ablaze with admitting to that Trump knew about the porn star. Apparently Bill Maher made a joke about it. Essentially what the position came down to is Trump's campaign, Trump just has a slush fund for paying off whores.
Pretty much.
And you know what? That's not totally unbelievable.
No, not at all. So, I mean, Rudy, like you just said, was added to Trump's private legal team. He's now joined the team, with Jay Succulo. A couple lawyers left, Ty Cobb being one of them last week, and they added Emmett Flood, who was a lawyer for Clinton during his impeachment. So that caught some eyebrows. But, he went on Sean Hannity. Right, so the reason that the Stormy Daniels thing is still staying in the news is because of the payment, right? So he paid her and made her sign an agreement, basically not to say shit about it. And
now she can get more money, and she wants a book deal.
Right. So now, but the thing is, if that payment came from his campaign, like money that was either from contributions or from a donor or whatever, there are legal filings there. And the way that they signed it, the non-disclosure agreement, Trump didn't. They used pseudonyms for both him and Stormy Daniels. So there was a legitimate question as to whether this is a violation of campaign finance laws. Again, just a way to get him on a technicality, like they get Al Capone on tax evasion, right? So
that's what they think they're doing.
That's what they think they're doing. Dude,
they think they're bringing down the Russian mob or something.
Dude, at first it was collusion. That's not going to work. So then they switched to they tried to ride the Me Too thing, and now they're going to get him on being basically a pig, even though everyone already knew that. And now it's getting as granular as from his private sexual dealings with Stormy Daniels, and the money that he happened to pay to her. We're going to try and get him on a campaign finance law violation and wrap him all up in that, and then impeach him if they get the House in 2018. And that's the whole plan.
I don't understand. And Jordan Peterson asked Bill Maher this. Jordan Peterson asked Bill Maher this when he was on here. See, I mean, I got to get more references. Yeah, I got to get more references than Jordan Peterson and Bill Maher. I actually almost bought 12 Rules for Life today. I actually was in a bookstore. Me being a New York liberal, was in a bookstore today, and it had 12 Rules for Life, and I was thinking about buying
still
it.
Exist?
Hey man, Hoboken's Little City Bookstore. They got some good stuff. But I think I'm going to order it online. I think I'm going to order it online and support evil Amazon. But he was talking about what's the plan. So when you knock out this guy that all these people support, he's their idol, he's their icon, right? And he sucks. Mm-hmm. What is it then?
What is the plan?
Because then they're just going to come after you. They're going to come after you. No.
Here's the thing, though. The
Pendulum is swinging,
demonization. Yeah, dude. The
Back
demonization of
and
Trump,
forth.
it doesn't just extend to Trump. It extends to anyone that voted for him and anyone that supported him.
Mm-hmm.
And they've no will never go away from that side. You know, he could literally cure cancer, denuclearize North Korea, and give everyone a fucking job, and they
then,
still wouldn't be happy.
And shoot someone on Fifth Ave.
And shoot someone. No, well, that's his own supporters. His own supporters won't leave him, and the people that hate him are never going to come around to him.
Tribalism sucks, man. God.
But man, it extends to his supporters. They are not going to come around and offer a hand and an olive branch to anyone that voted for him.
And to be fair,
yeah,
that goes the same way in the other direction as well.
Yes, but
do you think Trump voters are going to offer a hand to the New York pansexual liberal? Right? Like, that's what they're thinking is no. And it goes back to what we always say. It's tribes. And they hate each other. Everyone in this country hates each other. People in this country, I forget who was talking about it, but at what point are we going to have to make the decision, can we still be a country? Because there are places in this country they want nothing to do with other Americans. They hate them.
Yeah.
Right? Liberalism is a mental disorder. Right? That's the other side's argument to Trump-tards. They both hate each other, and luckily me and you, right, people more towards the center, and there are plenty of us. They're just not interested in politics.
Or they're just not the vocal ones.
Right, it's the radical ones.
I agree with what you said there, where it goes both ways. However, I think it is more harmful, the hatred coming from the left, because it is the
I don't even know if it's hatred. It's more like disdain. Like they're more like, I can't believe someone is like this. Like I can't believe someone would even think.
They put that. It is a small few putting a blanket on half the country. Deplorables, half the country. Whereas when the hate's going the other direction, I feel like it's more. I don't want it more targeted. I don't know. It's not like every Hillary Clinton supporter is awful. It's more targeted. They identify certain groups or certain individual characters or people, or like Bill Maher and his supporters, or Rachel Maddow and her supporters. I feel like it's
Black Lives Matter.
Right. And Black Lives Matter is not representative of every Hillary Clinton supporter. Whereas when the left targets a Trump supporter, you're a Trump supporter. Like it's one basket.
Interesting. Yeah.
See what I'm saying?
Yeah, I get what you're saying. That's an interesting way to put it.
Yeah, I think of a better way to verbalize that, but I think there's something to it.
Yeah, I think there's definitely something to it.
Yeah, but Rudy Giuliani.
Sorry, yeah, we don't have to keep going on Rudy. It's fine. He's basically just lying for Trump, and he looked like he was drunk on air or something. I mean,
he kind of did look deranged. I mean,
isn't it so funny he went on Sean Hannity too? It's like, it's also, who are the people believing that this is a genuine interview? Who are these people? Sean Hannity talks to Donald Trump every single night after a show.
Dude, then the follow-ups.
And Rudy,
like, there was
he
gives
them notes. He gives them notes on what to say next show. Who are the people that are like
Brazil in the interview questions for CNN?
What that is. It's essentially state TV. Come on, the Sean Hannity show is state TV.
Yeah, 100%.
I enjoyed Fox News. I forget who from Fox News did it. Was it Brit Hume that called Trump out and saying you're not?
Neil Cavuto.
Neil Cavuto was saying you're not draining the swamp, dude.
Yeah, no, that was a very good montage. If anyone wants to look that up,
I enjoyed that. It was very good it was very good for Fox News to do that.
No,
because he's not draining the
Fox News, but it's the opinion host. Okay,
it is
Fox News.
Right. If you turned on at 1:00 in the afternoon,
Brett Baer is the best anchorman on television.
Okay.
100%.
Sure. I don't really watch Brett Baer.
Brett Baer's nightly show is as their slogan is, fair and balanced. Like I think he does a very good job on that show. And then you get who else? I mean, Laura Ingraham, obviously. It's obvious. Sean Hannity, it's obvious. Tucker is what he is. But if you're talking about,
doing a good job.
Fox News from probably 3 to 6 p.m., not including the 5, is pretty good news.
It's like 3 hours, Bob.
Okay, what are you gonna get on CNN, Matt?
No, I know. Yeah, you're right. You're gonna get just all opinion that says they're fair and balanced.
Right.
Yeah. Fox News is interesting.
Yeah, right.
I like Tucker Carlson, what he's been doing with his show. I think he's been getting, at least he has like interesting people on. I think Tucker. I don't watch it too often. I don't really watch mainstream cable
Dude,
television.
there's no need to
anymore.
anymore.
There's no
There really
need
isn't.
for it. You got to cut it.
Cut the cord. Get rid of ESPN while you're at it. It's MSNBC with footballs.
True. Sure.
So what else? What else you want to hit here before we wrap up? I guess.
I was gonna say. I mean, I don't really have too much more to talk about. I'm trying to think if there's any foreign policy stuff I can talk about this week. I mean, Trump is probably going to decertify the Iran deal, and I heard
we can do an episode on that. We'll do some housekeeping at the end, but
I think maybe
about what
we
should. We got in the works.
Yeah, I want to talk about. Maybe we can go through this because you don't like the Iran deal as much, and we can do an episode on it. But I was listening to Shapiro talk about why we should scrap the Iran deal the other day, and his argument essentially came down to: let's scrap it, and then let Israel do what Israel needs to do. Is that really the argument of the conservatives?
No, I don't like that argument.
Because
I haven't heard what he said about it, but
he said, let's scrap the Iran deal. Iran was going to build a nuke tomorrow, right? Just like Bibi Netanyahu says, right? They're always 2 weeks away for the past 20 years. Lie. And Ben was like, well, we should get out, impose sanctions, because I guess that will get us, what? I don't know. And we should scrap the Iran deal so this genocidal, apparently, mullah regime can make the nuke in a couple months, because that's what it does, right? If we scrap the Iran deal, then, seemingly Iran's nuclear breakout time will decrease from over a year to a few months. That's what the IAEA says, the UN watchdog. And then Ben was like, yeah, well, it doesn't really matter. They're going to do it anyway. They're genocidal and they want to destroy Israel. So if Israel has to bomb some nuclear sites in Iran, let them do that. And it definitely won't lead into a larger conflict. I think it's even, he said it's ridiculous to even think that bombing Iran would lead to a larger conflict.
That sounds pretty stupid.
Sounds pretty... Ben Shapiro, as much as I like him and I appreciate him, his Israeli bias is so shallow. And, I believe Israel has a right to exist. Israel is the most progressive place in the Middle East, right? They're fun. If you're Palestinian, you can go to Israel. If you're Israeli, you can go to Palestine. It's a little jab, right? Fair. I agree.
No.
I agree, all that stuff. What I don't like is this idea that American foreign policy has to be Israeli foreign policy. And anyone who suggests that American foreign policy should not be Israeli foreign policy is an anti-Semite. And that's exactly how Ben Shapiro characterizes Ron Paul, which is the most unfair, dishonest characterization I've ever heard from someone as smart as Ben. Israel's great. I'm not sending, not me. I'm not sending American troops to die for fucking Israel. We've been in enough Middle East wars. Attacking Iran would be Iraq times 10. You can't do this.
But here's the thing with that, though. The young people in Iran are so against the regime.
They're not a genocidal regime. This is the thing. This is what's crazy. A couple mullahs say crazy things, and they say crazy things, right? I mean, you'll never...
That's America.
You'll never... Yeah. You'll never catch me saying religious people don't say crazy things, right? Religious fanatics are fanatical in all different kinds of ways. But to think that the Iranian government is going to build a nuclear bomb and then say, okay, shooting at Israel, you have to be a fucking idiot to think that. You really do. That is not true at all. Why does Iran want a nuke? Iran wants a nuke for the exact same reason that Pakistan wants a nuke, for the exact same reason that North Korea wants a nuke. It's so that way no one messes with them. Because when you get a nuke, that's who America and that's who the West, that's who we don't go to war with, right? There is something to be said that mutually assured destruction does work. It is true. And the Iranian regime, they're the largest sponsors of terror Yeah,
Mm-hmm.
they sponsor Hezbollah. They sponsor the Quds forces. They are in Syria. But, and this isn't whataboutism, we've sort of like supported Sunni extremists who cut people's heads off. What do you call that? We've given money to people and we have given weapons to people that go join ISIS. So when you're the biggest, sponsor of terror,
I mean, we've certainly funded groups that are radical,
we have funded
but
radical extremists.
you can't conflate the two.
Why not?
Why not? Well,
We funded the
just because we have
Mujahideen in
funded-
Afghanistan. Okay,
Right.
Osama bin Laden, that's us. Right? I love America too. That's us. The Sunni extremism and terrorism in part. And I've done a lot of thinking and a lot of reading about this in the past 4 months because I used to not think this way at all. The money leads back to our government and our CIA giving to these extremists to fund destabilizing actions across the Middle East. It's just there. They've just done it. They've just, there's a bunch of cowboys in the FBI and the CIA that get to do these things. And, Barack Obama signs off, fund this rebel group in Syria. Shh, signed. Next thing you know, they're ISIS and they control a third of the fucking country.
Mm.
So let's just watch when we're gonna say America is so proudful and America is so great and amazing, and it is. We've got our dirty secrets too. And I don't think Iran is crazy, and I don't think Iran is going to blow up Israel. And I think that scrapping the Iran deal to bomb Israel and just hope we don't get into a war is sort of a lame, stupid path to go down.
All right, well said.
Sorry, yeah.
Well,
I mean, I think I have one of these rants for every podcast. Jeez.
Well, all right, you got a little foreign policy rant. I got a little story here. This is more sort of in my realm of government waste. I guess this is really the thing that sticks up my craw. So
that in the post office.
And the post office. God, do I hate the post office. So okay, if anyone here has gone to public school, I have not, but if you do any type of reading on it, particularly in inner cities, public schools aren't a great place to be. Particularly in Baltimore, public schools are not a great place to be. So I saw this story come across from a local news station down in Baltimore that, just last week with the heat, the heat wave that came along. I mean, it wasn't really a heat wave, but it was the first warm days we've had all year. A bunch of schools closed early due to the heat, and in the article, it referenced how, like they haven't had school closings in a while since some closed during the winter because they were without heat, right? So you basically have public schools where kids need to go every day and are expecting a nice environment where they can then learn. And they don't have heat and they don't have ways to cool the buildings so that they need to close early. The city doesn't have the funds for it is what you hear. We don't have the money, even though the United States spends more money on education than any other country in the world. We don't have the money by a lot, by tenfold. We don't have the money to put heat or air conditioning in these schools for the kids in Baltimore. Meanwhile, the mayor of Baltimore, Catherine Puge, I don't know if I'm saying that right, pronouncing it right, but Catherine Puge, P-U-G-E, happened to find $100,000 of taxpayer money to fund bus rides from Baltimore to D.C. 60 buses for 3,000 kids, gave them all a T-shirt and a free lunch. And you know what they bust them up there for? The March for Our Lives, the gun rally after the Parkland shooting. They found $100,000 taxpayer money to ship kids up there so that they can hold signs. The kids don't understand the meaning of the debate and the argument, and the arguments around the Second Amendment and the context of it. Dude, they just used kids as props and propaganda and spent $100,000 on it to send them up there and have them hold gun control signs and get a free day off from school, when they should be learning. Meanwhile, they can't put heat and air conditioning in these schools. So the next time a politician tells you that we need more money for schools and, it's for the kids, just look them in their face and tell them that they're fucking lying. The money's already there. The money's being wasted. They don't need a single more dollar of my money. They need to stop wasting it and stop spending it incorrectly.
Yeah,
so
man,
that's my
this. I mean, I work in urban education now, and I'm in these inner cities. I'm talking to inner city parents who use the public school systems, who want an alternative. And, because of my job, we've been doing a lot of research on different curriculum that that proves useful in helping inner city kids learn.
Right.
And we could go on. I could talk about this for hours about education and different curriculum but scores came out from, I believe I can't remember the organization's name, but it's like they measured the proficiency of math and reading scores for United States children, and they do this every year. 70% of United States children are not proficient in math compared to the world.
I fully believe that. And then what's the percentage of that 70% out of public schools? Probably close to 100.
I mean, I'm sure you could. I think it was only in public schools they did that survey.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, and this is the thing. I'll even speak for my organization, right? So I work private schools. The proficiency scores weren't as great, but we luckily, being private, have the opportunity to change it and try out different things and help these kids, right? That's what our organization just started, and we're trying to help these kids, and we're sort of in the midst of implementing these programs that have been shown to like raise their math and reading scores. But in public education, so much is wasted, and they are stuck in the orthodoxy. It's sort of become like, this is the way things are done, right? Common Core curriculum is the way things are done, and that's the only way to do it. And if you don't do it, you're leaving these kids to dry. Well, what happens when you see these kids go through 8 years, 12 years of Common Core curriculum is they can't read, and they can't write. And we spend double the amount per student. We spend, I think, something around like $12,000, $13,000 per student to educate a child. South Korea, they spend $6,000. And those kids are way smarter, right? And so it just goes to show, and this is government waste, and this is just a general principle, just because you throw money at something doesn't mean it's going to get better.
Exactly.
You have to do the research. You have to, try. You fail something, you try something else, right? It's a game, but
a couple
throwing
things.
money doesn't work.
I was so excited when I heard that Betsy DeVos was going to be education secretary, because I know she's a huge proponent of vouchers.
I'm a huge fan.
I know personally now I don't like her anymore because she's not getting anything done, but I'm a huge fan of vouchers.
Yeah, okay? Not her, vouchers. I'm so in for people being able to decide where they use their money.
It's applying what we just talked about, dude. Instead of doing what we've always done, which is the definition of insanity because it's clearly not working, and just throwing money at the problem and not fixing it, how about we apply free market principles to education? And the better schools will, get better. They will have more students enroll in them. The shittier schools will close, okay? You will have a market solution to education if you allow parents the choice as to where they send their kid, instead of you live here, send them here.
Because what you're doing is you're helping create that cycle where the poorest areas have the poorest school districts, and the kids are forced to go. And you take these nice, cheery little kids, and you tell them they have to go survive in, honestly, this is parents' words, not mine, hell. You're sending a little kid into some of these public schools. You're asking them to do way too much. You're asking them to thrive in an environment that is not conducive to thriving at all.
I will say there's some nuance, obviously, to this argument, just as everything else. Like, I would argue probably that the reason that United States kids are scoring well below the rest of the world is not only our schools, but our parents, our families, our societal importance that we put on education. I bet in South Korea, those kids are going to school, then they're coming home and doing 5 hours worth of homework and applying themselves.
Oh, yeah.
Here, you go to school, you come home, you play Fortnite, you go to sports or whatever. There's not as much of a cultural and societal we don't put education on that big of a pedestal. You don't have parents making their kids read and looking over their shoulder and making sure their homework's doing well. Some parents do, but not all.
Hey man, and the ones that do end up succeeding. And it is a trope. Exactly. It is a trope, but Japanese families, who's leading, economically in America? Japanese Americans. There's something to be said of the culture. There's something to be said of the culture that values education above everything else, and hounds those kids.
And Jewish people, or a doctor.
Exactly.
It's a stereotype, but
that's a good stereotype to have. Being rich and successful is a nice stereotype. What a great problem you have.
Yeah.
Yeah, I think we need to. I have a great book. I don't know if it's above me. It's by E.D. Hirsch, and it's the schools we have and why we need them, or it's the schools we don't have and why we need them. And he basically breaks all this down.
Mm.
And it's a
I'd
fantastic
like to
book.
read. Here,
Yeah,
you send me that one.
Peterson for E.D. Hirsch. All right, man. All right, you got a
I saved
deal.
you $18.
All right, cool. Sounds good.
But all right. So anything else?
No, I think that's it for me.
Yeah, I think that's it for me. So some housekeeping. Matt and I have been pretty busy, and I mean, we like to try and get some written pieces out there as opposed to this weekly podcast. Haven't really been doing that. So
Yeah, it's been tough.
this week we're gonna
So
make
much work.
a lot of things going on. We're gonna make a focus to do that. We're gonna start getting weekly here in terms of what we push out. So we'll have this weekly podcast again. Usually drops on Mondays. Matt will try and maybe write something Tuesday. I'll go Wednesday, and then we've been thinking and are going to get in the works of doing our own, shows, our own recordings of a podcast
Smaller,
individually.
shorter topics.
Smaller, shorter, more focused
Maybe
segments.
like half hour, 25 minutes.
Yeah, like Matt's gonna maybe foreign policy being a niche, Foreign Policy Friday or something along those lines. I might take I'll talk about government waste on Thursdays for all 6 of you that are interested. But that's
Exactly.
really what we have in the works. You can follow me, Bobby J Politics on Twitter, ombudsmanreport.com.
Follow me at Planet Politico for the spicy takes, and we'll talk to you next week. Thanks for watching, guys.